Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. Before we start, I would like to inform you that this session is being recorded. Let me once again welcome you all to this insightful session on webinar, How to Reduce IT Spend and Gain Visibility from Symphony Summit AI. I would like to let you know that we have taken all the necessary precautions to make sure your experience during this session is smooth and flawless. However, in case we come across any technical difficulties, kindly bear with us since most of us are operating out of home network. As the session progresses, I would urge all the participants to post your questions in the Q&A box, which will be answered by our host towards the end of the session. The agenda for this webinar would include Introduction to Symphony Summit AI by Mr. Jayendra Sridharan, Senior Solution Consultant, Symphony Summit AI. This will followed by a 45 minutes deep dive session. We will follow this up with a 10-minute session for a Q&A. Now I would request Mr. Jai to start the session.
Thank you, Tanushree. Let me share my screen. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this session. On today's session, we're going to be looking at how we can reduce IT spending. And by doing this, we are going to also see how we can gain visibility and control using the Summit AI's ITAM module over here. So first, a little bit on brief about who and what Symphony Summit AI is all about. So brief overview. So we are a leading AI-driven IT enterprise management suite, right? We have won a lot of accolades over the years that we've been present. One of them have been a Customer Choice Award, which we've been consistent from the year of 2018, and this is driven by Gartner Peer Insight. So if you get onto the Gartner webpage, you would see us that we've been consistent all the way from 2018, 19, and 2021. 2020, because of the COVID, the pandemic, they had given us the award, but in the year of 2021. Having said that, we are also the CIO Choice Award in 2021. So we have won many such accolades. Right? Symphony AI is a portfolio company which is, which sponsors $1 billion throughout the AI industry across the Symphony AI group. Right? We have 250 plus customers. Some of the logos which you're seeing on your screen are some of those customers which belong to that 250 plus odd. Right now, a little bit about the parent company, which is the Symphony AI Group. Okay, it's chaired by Dr. Ramesh Wadhwani, who has been in this industry for decades. And like I said, it's a 1 billion funding which is being supported in the R&D and the business growth throughout. Now, if you look onto your right, you have if you see the Symphony AI has been in the retail, the manufacturing, the finance, media, healthcare, and AI platform. And obviously the enterprise IT is where the Symphony Summit AI belongs. So this is just a little bit information about the Symphony AI group here. Now, when we talk about Symphony Summit AI very specifically, we are looking at our presence. So we are globally present across. So our headquarters in North America, but we have the development center in India and also in Southeast Asia. And as you can see on your screen, we are across all over the world. So now, when we talk about the 250 plus global customers, we are looking at a different vertical. So as you can see on your screen, we have telecommunications, we have some high-end customers, financial services, auto and manufacturing, industries, technology and consulting, and also in healthcare and consumer. So these are some of the logos, as you can see on your screen here. Now, this is what I wanted to share was all about what Symphony Summit AI is all about as a company, the portfolio of the company, and the parent company, the Symphony AI team. Now, let's get on to what this webinar is all about, wherein we look at how do we reduce IT spending, gaining visibility, and control. So you make your move to an ITAM strategy or IT asset management strategy. So before we get into what Summit AI offers, we'll ask a question: why asset management? What is the reason why we need asset management? Where do you think we would look at reducing IT spending, and how does asset management help us in doing that, right? Now, when you take some examples here, which is there on the screen, like discovering the different IP devices or assets within the environment, you would want to have a visible knowledge of what devices are there in your environment today. So you all might be placed globally across, and you would want to have that information of all those devices here, right? And then do you know what are the company assets used by employees at any point in time? Do you have that information today? Now, well, Summit AI Asset Management helps you with that information. When we talk about assets as a device, now some of these assets come with warranty information. Do you know when this warranty is expiring? Would you like to have alerts which gets generated? Now, all this pertaining is to the visibility and also the information of these assets which are involved, right? Now, another key area where if you notice today, and through an IT asset management review, there's a 31% of IT asset managers who have reported that they've seen an increase in software audit. So software plays a very important role. Now, we would also like to know what softwares have been installed within my industry or my environment or my company, what is happening. And also, are they licensed and what kind of license these are? So you have all of that information coming up here, right? So all that, again, gets down to having greater visibility. And when we talk about software, also a certain extent to a control. You would want to also control what kind of softwares have been there. So how do we do this? We have options to have methods to prevent malicious and unauthorized softwares that can be easily spread through malware or spyware today in the enterprise, right? So you would want to have a control over that. Now, and as we go on in this webinar, you're going to see how Summit AI helps from controlling these malicious and unauthorized software. How do we control about that? So also, you can even track and redeploy unused assets by bringing down the cost of the capital, which is again very important here. How do we track and redeploy if the assets are not being used? How many assets are there in the store? And it's not being used for a certain period of time. You can always extend those assets, which can be reused. Probably they're in the best of conditions. So again, now there are two options which come in. One, you're saving cost, and also you have the visibility of assets which are there, which are not being used. So all this information becomes again very important, right? And then the assets which have been allocated to your employees, to your users, to your customers today, you can always do a reconciliation of that asset. How many of them are actually using these assets? So you have reports which get generated, which again makes you take those decisions on the assets which are not being used efficiently and effectively, and that can also be taken back and given to a department or somebody else who can use this information here, right? So all these things kind of gives you a question as to why are we looking at asset management today here, right? Now, also, when we took out asset management, we're looking at processes like an IMAC process, where you have an integrated system with your service request, your service catalogs, or your incident management when then an asset needs to be repaired. all of this belongs to a process where you would want to have an integrated asset management system to kind of assist in conducting or even proactive maintenance based on the life of an asset. So you would want to have those information over here. All right. So all this is available in Summit AI Asset Manager, which we're going to see. Before I move on, let's take a poll, and there's a question over here which is going to come up. Okay, I think everybody has answered that. Thank you for that information. It's really helpful for us. So let me, Tanu,
Thank
if you
you,
can,
audience, for your valuable feedback.
if you can stop
Jai,
share.
as you can see, 62% are currently using an asset management solution.
That's really good to know, and 38 of them are not. So that's nice. It's really interesting. So can I stop sharing this information? So minimize that. All right. Once again, thanks everybody for attending that question, which is very interesting. We get some information about that. Continuing in this journey, so we saw all the whys. Why do we need asset management? Where does it help? So let's look into how and how does this control, the visibility, the compliance, also security. This is something which is also very, very important in today's world. So how does this all come together in Summit AI today? So we get to see the complete control, visibility with Summit AI Asset Management here. Now, if you look at obviously I've already spoken about the benefits, because when we speak about why you would want to know the visibility, once you have the visibility, you get to decide on what kind of assets are required. You can put up a budget, you can do reconciliation, a lot of information when it comes to visibility, location wise, how many assets are available, how many are not available. A lot of such things would fall under visibility, right? Now, when we talk about regulatory compliance, now this, like I mentioned, there's a 31% of IT managers have reported, especially during this pandemic time, there's been an increase in the software audit, which has happened, right? So you would want to have a regulatory compliance. And now, how do we have this option over here? So there are features with the bottom of it, which I'm going to explain that a little later on. And another important factor of this webinar is on the cost savings. How do we save cost, right? How, where, and what? And obviously through visibility, to compliance, to security, we are going to achieve that also, right? And the last one is the seamless integration with ITSM. So I'm sure that 61% of y'all are using the system. Now, the next question is, has it been integrated with your existing ITSM system? Now, what benefits do you get? A lot of benefits which have when there's a seamless integration with your ITSM. The simple one which comes up to my mind is your IMAC process, right? Right from making a request, having the assets allocated, following up with the assets, if there's any repair, taking back those assets, onboarding, offboarding, all of this involves two of these core modules coming into play, ITSM and ITAM, which comes into play. Now, when we talk about visibility, we have features like agent and agentless discovery. So discovery itself is a big, very useful information which comes up when you run a discovery across your environment. You have enough information about all the assets, different forms of assets which are available there. So again, visibility gives you enough information on that. Now, through these agents, you can also have options where you can get to see how many assets are being used. Now, these assets can be hardware assets or even software assets. So there might be a software which is very expensive but not being used for the last 2 to 3 months. Now, with an agent, we can get that information and also help you or help the management understand that these set of softwares, which are very expensive, are not being used and they can be repurposed and also being given to a team, which would probably make that particular request in their upcoming budget or their monthly budget or quarterly budget because they want that software. So again, visibility plays a key role here. So these are few examples, and I'm sure we're going to see much more as we progress on this. Now, when we talk about compliance, another very important thing is asset control, or how do we control the softwares which are there, because it's very important when it comes to compliance. There are a lot of audits which happens by these huge software giants where they come in, they tell you that you don't have specific license or you've overshot the installation count and so on and so forth. So very important to have that controller in place. So that is why when we look at it, we talk about software metering, talk about software compliance, normalization, how many softwares are there, you collect that data. Again, this is a combination which complements each other. You have a visibility of what is happening, and also you adhere to your compliance, which is being followed here. So it kind of goes hand in hand when it comes to that. Obviously, when we talk about cost savings, a lot of methods in which you can be achieved using Summit AI today, the asset management. One is because we give you the real time inventory management for both hardware and software. Very, very important. And then also information like who the asset ownership, have different, like, lot of reports. I'm going to show you a couple of them when we get into the demo. So we have a lot of reports which can help in understanding the reporting system of it, which again helps you to know where you can cut cost, where you can kind of reuse certain systems, assets, softwares. You have that option. Improved security. Now, security again is a very key aspect in today's world, not just in any industry today. It's across industries, right? So you have an option to kind of control using asset controller, and as well as distributing certain software. So you control the distribution of softwares. You know what kind of softwares are allowed and have them in your environment here. And finally is the seamless integration with ITSM. Now, as I already mentioned, we have different processes which can be part of this integration if this integration exists. So you have the incident management, which caters to all your asset repairs. So again, have a visibility of which asset, which vendor. So if you have contract managements across with that vendor, you have enough information through reporting which kind of gives you what was the cost which was incurred on a certain set of devices of a certain set of model, or of or a software which is going down. So you have all of that information. And another add-on to that is when you onboard your employees, or you in fact or even offboard your employees, you have those options coming up here, right? So seamless integrations with ITSM. So this gives you a complete control and visibility of everything which happens in your organization today. Moving ahead, now, what is or what does Summit AI Asset Management do to you? Now, what are the key features, which come out of the IT asset management, right? Now, I already spoke about discovery, so we have both agent and agentless. And when we talk about, the protocols which we use WMI, Telnet, SSH, SNMP protocols. These are some of the protocols which we use to discover various sets of assets of different nature, right? Now, when we talk about hardware asset management, Summit AI caters to the complete life cycle of asset management, right from procuring the asset all the way up to retirement of the asset. Anything which happens in between that, all of it gets captured from the visibility point of view and control. You can also control that. So when it comes to let's say variance, any change in your hardware, information is available. Asset reconciliation, again, very important when it comes to spending, when you want to budget, when you want to know how many assets are actually being used, can we repurpose some of these assets for next year or the following month, you have that information coming out. Now, platforms which you support, I'm not going to read them out, but it's all the platforms which are there today, like the Windows, the Linux, Solaris, Macintosh, all of which is something which is being supported by Summit AI's asset management here, right? So we have different platforms. When we talk about software asset management, like we mentioned in the previous slide, we cater to both hardware asset management and software asset management. Now here again, when we look at visibility and control becomes very, very important, where we talk about software inventory, we have ample reports which talks about the entire software inventory available across the enterprise or the organization. We also tell you if there's a change in software variants, if there's a new software which is being discovered in your environment, you've been alerted so that you can make the appropriate control on that particular software, what control is required, so you can do that. So software metering usage again comes from an IT cost. If there's some an expensive software which is not being used, and if someone else requires it, you can go ahead and you know take it back or uninstall it and then install it. So you have a lot of such information. And discovery is already, which is mentioned. So we have data normalization from that perspective. A lot of reporting. So whether it is compliance, whether it is metering, whether it is normalization, all these reports are available here. Now, when we look at proactive compliance, which is another key feature, which is part of this webinar, is how do you control this? How do you invest security and control here? So we have features like application control and endpoint compliance management. We have 180 plus parameters where you can go ahead and make sure when it comes to control or security, this is there. And also a dynamic local password management. I'm going to talk about it. We have another slide on this. I'll talk about it a little more on that. Now, as Summit AI also has the ability to integrate. So there are some integrations which come out of the box, but apart from that, we are open to integration either through web services or APIs. We have those options. So some of them are out of the box, like for example, SCCM for us in Summit AI today is out of the box here. So these are in a nutshell of what features Summit AI asset management has to offer to the customers today here. Now, talking about the asset control of when we talk about application control, what it does is it basically, again, helps from security and more organized control across your organization. Now, it allows what kind of software should be present in an individual's laptop based on a profile. You can have different profiles set up in Summit AI today, so that way you have enough control and also visibility as to who comes under what profile, and based on that you can whitelist, blacklist your softwares, and you can talk about what folder access they should have based on that particular profile. You can map up all of this information so that you get a much more visibility and your secured control over it. That is one. When we talk about security, endpoint compliance is a very, very apt example where you have 180 plus parameters where you can extend your endpoint compliance to. You can have this done proactively and in real time with all your compliance engine, what caters to your industry. So you might be from a banking industry or you might be from a manufacturing industry. Based on that, you can go ahead and have these endpoint compliance set, and at the end of the day, from a visibility perspective, you have reports which get generated there, and it's obviously dynamic in nature, so you know exactly what is happening on that, right? And finally, the dynamic local admin password management. Again, this I would put it on control and security reasons. So at any point in time, an admin password would be pretty much common across most of our industries today, right? Now, what Summit AI does is we make that dynamic. It's not common every let's say 30 minutes, which is again configurable. You can set up a timer. uh, After that particular timer hits, the password would change for an administrator. So one is the admin doesn't have the same password, so that if I have a friend who's an administrator, I cannot ask him or her to download some software which is blacklisted, but since they have the rights, they can download it, because everything gets tracked. So there is, for an IT management, there's a lot of visibility, security in place. They know exactly when and what time was the admin into the system, what was done, how long was that person in that system, and so on and so forth. So again, very important, and it basically provides you three different components which cater to the control and security perspective of it. So this is the asset controller from that perspective here, right? Um, I'm going to move on to a demonstration. This is what I wanted to showcase quickly on the presentation perspective to this webinar, and how we would go about reducing IT spending. And I'm sure everybody on this call would kind of realize that all this contributes to reducing the IT spending here. So let me move on to the system here, right? Just give me 1 minute. Let me log in. Now, again, let me tell you that in Summit AI, specifically in asset management, we have multiple dashboards which are available when it comes to viewing of the information here, right? So one of the most important things is making sure you have enough and more visibility across the the entire organization. So if you look at this dashboard, it caters to all the information which is available. So in Summit AI Asset Management, we have four classification. We have fixed, consumables, accessories, and softwares. So all of these cater to different sets of assets within the organization. So there's no restrictions of different categories of assets. So you can have now under fixed, if you look at it from a life cycle perspective, the journey starts off from discovering the assets, right? And I'm going to show you a discovery dashboard real quick. But if you look at it, we very clearly cater to how many assets are there in store, how many are being used, how many are sent to repair, and how many of these assets are inactive in nature. Now, all the dashboards here have a rich drill down feature. So if you want to see how many are being used, again, from a visibility, you want to know what is happening and even want to check. So you cater to the details of what category, if I'm looking at laptop, and it then finally filters down to the model, the manufacturer, so on, and then filters down to the user here. So it micromanages to the user. So again, from having an information about who's using the asset right from your dashboard drills down all the way to the user is of a great information. Now, when I scroll down further, we have obviously the variance information, any changes in the hardware which has taken place, or any changes in the software which is taking place, because when we look at security and compliance, this becomes a very key factor which comes into picture. So you have information coming up. Also, software non-compliance, how many have non-compliance against you have that information. Operating systems are also available. It gives us the information of all the operating systems which have been used, right? Now, coming back to again, when we look at control and a cost which is there, so we can talk about when you're looking at a cost, and if you have a policy within your organization that aged assets needs to be replaced. Now we give you an information about that. So we have a report based on the assets which are there, right? Now warranty information, as you can see, when is the warranty expired? How many systems have expired warranty? How many are going to expire in the next 30 days? You have that information. From a security and control, you get to see also the recent discovered assets, which have been there in your environment, and these are new assets which are coming into the system. So you have the recent discovered assets. And obviously, keeping the IMAC system on, we also kind of already have a seamless integration with the ITSM. So any users who are pending to accept the allocated assets, how many of them are there? Again, information, very important information, gives you a good visibility of how many have accepted, how many have not. Please note that this is a summarized dashboard. So obviously we have individual reports for each of them, and you can filter down. For example, if this aged asset we are showing greater than 4 years, we can, and Summit AI has the ability to provide even 0 to 6 months old assets. So this is just a quick summarized view which we have here. Now, talking about assets getting into the system, right? Very important. We have discovery. We have our own discovery engine, which allows you to go ahead and use those various protocols which we saw in the presentation, and then have enough information coming up. Now, again, from a visibility, the total number of jobs which have been running, how many assets have, which can be reached, how many have not reached. So how many agents have actually spoken back. That was also in the previous dashboard. You have that information also, how many assets have been in contact, how many have not. A lot of information which goes on, but this is purely from a discovery perspective, how many assets have been discovered, and you have that information coming up here. Now, when we talk about having assets getting into the system, one is the discovery method. The other one, we also have options to import assets through an Excel. You can import assets. Integration is something which I already spoke about in the slides. So integration is another form in which you have that. Now, once it gets integrated, again, from visibility standpoint of view, how many assets have been coming into your system, so that you have data normalization of those assets before it gets into the inventory, and the life cycle begins from that perspective, right? So you have those information coming up here. Now, when we look at once the discovery happens, right, we get onto the new discovered assets. So you have an option to see all your new discovered assets which come into the system today. And, let me just filter that. So I'm just going to say host name. You have different options to go ahead and have these coming up here. So you have all these assets which are coming up. It gives you the chassis type, all this information, again, from having you can have your discoveries run on a frequent basis, or on a recurring basis, based on the way it's been configured. Based on that, you get this information, and every time there's a new discovered asset comes in, you have visibility of what those assets are, where do they belong, and so on and so forth. So once this discovery happens, then you can step up and start the life cycle process, wherein you can move to a specific store, and based on that store, you have information of how many assets are there in that store. So at any point in time, you as an IT manager, asset manager, how many assets are there, and you can set up a threshold saying, if my laptop count goes below a certain threshold, make sure there's an alert which gets generated. Now, this allows you to control the number of assets which are there, and also gain visibility of those assets, right? And this, in a way, obviously would help in reducing the IT spending. So you know exactly what is happening, whether it's a hardware or a software which is there. Now, talking about visibility, let me give you an example of a specific asset. I just want to filter down on one particular asset, and I just want to show you that. So right. So now when we talk about information getting captured within our Summit AI's asset management, you can see the multiple tabs which are there on your left and on the top. Now, when we see the registry, we have all the information about that very specific asset, which is getting captured here. Now, every little detail gets captured. Hardware and software information, also that gets captured. So you have filters to play around to see what information is there. So especially if it is an expensive software, you want to filter it out and see the usage of this particular software. So again, visibility becomes a key factor here. Hardware, all the information about the hardware, what is it, what agents is running on it, and when was it procured, all of that information comes up here. Now, device manager is pretty standard, but very important again from a visibility and control and security. You have the history of the asset, like how many users have used this asset in the past, or who's currently using it, and has this asset moved from either from one store to another store, or has it gone to a repair center, and if it has gone to the repair center, what is the history of that. Now again, over here you get to have the visibility of also the cost which is involved on this particular repair. So you can talk about it from a vendor perspective, whether you want to change your vendor or you want to take a decision of saying why this happens more often. So again, very crucial information. Obviously, once it comes back from the repair, you get to see all the audits, all the changes which have happened on that asset which went for repair. Or it doesn't have to always be repair, it can also be something which, over a period of time that this update has taken place, or they have changed some information. Now, if collectively, what I'm trying to say is information and the visibility of what is happening on an individual asset is available in Summit AI. So we micromanage and present that information. So at any point in time, anybody can go ahead and see that. Now, if you look at this, accessories and consumables, right? Now, accessories can be an external USB mouse, it can be an external hard drive. Now, all of that also gets captured today. A lot of organization miss that kind of information, but Summit AI helps you to understand and see that. And not only that, it gives you also the history. When was it allocated? Very importantly, how old, or when was this mouse given, and do I have to change it? Again, visibility of this information. Reconciliation, very important. How many times has this been reconciled? Because once today the assets are being allocated, after 3 months you would want to know whether they are using that asset, or that user has been using it, or it's just been lying around. You want to get that, so you do a reconciliation of that, and that information is also present here. Now this again reduces IT spending. If that person is not using, let's say, a printer, right, and it's being allocated to that particular department or that particular project, and the printer is not being used, right, and once the reconciliation is being triggered, the project manager can say, okay, we know what, we're not using it, and then that printer can be again repurposed and then given to a department which actually needs it. So you're again reducing IT spending there. So very important, one example of that. I'm sure there are a lot more examples when we look at reconciliation. Now, endpoints, like I mentioned, we're talking about endpoints where, based on your company, your organization, what policies you'll have, like what firewall policy, antivirus, password policies, all of that information is available from an endpoint perspective, 180 plus parameters, where you can go ahead and see what is compliant, what is non-compliant. And at the end of the day, you have a dashboard which gives you that information of this. Now, again, this gives you control and security across, right? So you exactly know what are the systems which are compliant, what are not. Now it gives you location wise, and if you're an organization who cater to different customers, it gives you customer wise, operating system. Again, all these are important information which is available here. Now it all totally based on configuration, which is of your highest when it comes to endpoints, what is your top most priority, and then a mediocre one, and then a lower one, which is available here. Coming back to that particular asset, so I'm still here. Password audit details, I just mentioned to you about the dynamic password management. So you would know how many administrators were in your system, at what point in time, how long were there, and all of that information is available here. Patch information is also available, or what patches were there. So again, since I'm going through these tabs, you have all of that information available here. And if there's a seamless integration with your current ITSM or the Summit AI's ITSM, you can see all the incidents, the requests which were made to or for this particular assets. All of that information is available here, right? Any little information regarding. So Again, great visibility of a specific, just one asset I just picked up, and I showed you that information which is going on here, right? Now, coming to when we talk about control, right? If I'm talking about the control, what we have softwares, which is another very key feature of the product. So we have whitelisting and blacklisting. So you can list out and blacklist. We're talking about something called application control, which is so you have an option to create and update a certain profile, right? So let me choose a tenant, since our system caters to multi-tenancy. So you can go ahead and let's say profile name, and you can create one. Sorry, let me say modified date. And I think I've already opened one. Sorry, I apologize. Yeah, so if you look at this, we have a profile name called IT user and non-IT user. So you can create as many profiles as you want when it comes to security and control of this. Now, under each of these profiles, you can define, let's say if I'm adding new, you have an option to go ahead and define what softwares needs to be whitelisted, what have been blacklisted in that perspective over here. So let me show that one more time. Let me go back here. Right, here you go. So here you have an option to go ahead and let's say if I select IT users here, it allows me to see three different informations. One is your software information, executable information, and folder information. Once you get to see that, you have an option to either stick onto a baselining of the software. You can say you can use a default baseline, but since I've created a profile called IT users, I get to choose which of this is allowed, which is not allowed, and so on and so forth. I can even talk about exes, the folders, all of this information. Now, this is purely from a control and security standpoint of view, is why I'm using this information here. So another key aspect when it comes to gaining visibility, especially, and also allowing your management to control what is happening in your environment, very very important from that aspect of it, right? Now, we saw software asset management, we saw the asset controllers which are available from that perspective. Now moving on to how do I get visibility of what is happening in my environment. So it's always through reports. So Summit AI's asset management has multiple reports which gets generated. Apart from that, we also help in creating dynamic reports based on what the organization looks at. So we have that options also available here. You can create either a report and then pin it up onto a new dashboard here. So just to give you an example, let's take an example of a usage report, right? Like a software usage, which is again key. I want to know what kind of softwares are being used across my today. Let's say for the last 1 week, I want to know if Microsoft Office was used, right? I need to know that information because again, I want to control it and also see if I can save cost. I mean, probably the example which I use is Office, but we can use much bigger or more expensive softwares. So I get to see how many have been installed, how many have been used, how many have not been used. So if you say you take this total number of installed softwares and not being used, and I filtered it down to a week. Again, a visibility of that information. Now, obviously, I can extend that week to a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, or a customized date range, which I can allow this to go about doing this, right? Now, this is one such report which we have from it, let's say from a software. Let me take another example and say, let's take an example of deactivated users. So today you have a lot of users who have been, are not in the system, okay, and but they, the assets have been involved, or rather say inactive users, right? Now I can go ahead and see how many such assets are still under those inactive users here, right? Now let me take an example of desktop and I'll say, you know, inactive users. So as you can see, I also have this information again from a visibility standpoint of view and from a cost saving. Now, these assets are actually being allocated to users who are no longer there in the system or no longer there in the organization, but it still is there. So I can have a team go about retrieving these assets, making sure clean up, re-image these assets and put them to use, right? So this becomes very, very important from that aspect of it. So now if you look at it, I have, this is another report. Now when we talk about saving cost, so we also have a report based on cost. Now this is a basic cost information report. This is one such report what we have, where we talk about what was the purchase order, when, I mean, how much did it cost, all of that information comes up here, right? Now these are certain Dell related laptops, the vendors are there on the side, and then the cost which is coming up, which, who's the cost center which is receiving this, and the PO numbers. Now again, now this, such reports can be extensively used for budgeting. Now when we look at the cost for this year by this cost center, everybody, finance team, the asset team, they can get together and see, because they have this information which is going on. So this information gets captured, right? And you don't have to jump and toggle between multiple systems to have this information. Everything gets collated here and is made available here, right? One such report here. And finally, from security, if you look at it, if I take an example of software license compliance, today, if you see, many of them wants to have this information handy, because there are different sets of licenses which are being used. They want to know how many have been installed, how many are valid, very, very importantly, how many have been valid, because once an audit happens, you don't want to be fined, or they shouldn't slap a penalty of using invalid licenses. So this report becomes very important and very, very crucial to any of the software asset management team here, right? So this is very important. So that is why we have reports, again, from control and visibility. Not just it gives you this information, but you can also control it. Now uninstall, I can go and uninstall, out of this 10 I can go and uninstall 5 of them, because only 5 have been valid. So I can go ahead and do that information here, right? So it's basically, if I have to put it all in a nutshell, you have a way of concentrating on using unique ways to reducing cost. But Summit AI caters, and also allows you to kind of create not just these reports, but multiple such reports, which kind of helps in gaining control, also at the same time having, making sure there's a security in place, and overall visibility, which all leads to having the IT cost getting reduced. So all these reports, if you collate it and all pin it up on a dashboard, it's going to give you a lot of analysis which can allow you to understand and then prepare on the costings which is going to go on the spendings which is going to happen, in the upcoming months or in the upcoming year. So very, very important from that aspect of it. So this is something which I wanted to talk about in this webinar today, when it came up to how we can reduce IT spending, uh, through having visibility and control, and also making your move towards an IT asset management strategy. So this is something which I wanted to talk about here, right? So Tanushree, do you have another poll for our audience today?
I would request all the audience to please answer the poll. Thank you for your valuable answers. Now let's move to Q&A session. Jai, we have a question from Ms. Roshni saying, she said, does it possible to have an email notification when an end user wants to move, discover asset or import asset to their respective plant to the admin user?
Yes, we have email notifications. Notifications via email is our default methodology. We also have options where we can have text messages going to their phones if configured. So the answer is yes.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Sachin. Does IT help desk ticketing tool material procurement include in this asset management?
If Mr. Sachin, if I'm getting it correct, so you're asking whether the procurement process is part of IT asset management. The answer is that we have our own procurement system in place. That is, it's there, and obviously in this webinar we didn't showcase that. Apart from that, we also are open for integrating
right.
existing procurement systems today what you have. So we are open for either of them.
So just to add to what Jay said, mainly what you the question was mainly with respect to material process. So in with respect to procurement, so procurement related request can be raised through proper approval mechanism, and then definitely a complete inventory can be managed through a complete life cycle of the material management. However, from the procurement with respect to a specific process of invoicing and billing or a GRN entry, that has to be done via procurement system. That is not done currently supported in today's environment, and we can integrate with that procurement system.
Thank you, Syed. We also have one more question from Mr. Sachin. Also, IT facility access requirement approval process included?
Yes, completely via complete. We have an approval engine by which you can complete any kind of approval workflow process.
Yeah, just to add to side, that is part of our IT service plan. Yeah.
Hi, Sachin. Hope you got your answers for your questions. Our next question is from Mr. Mukesh. He wants to know, can we install or uninstall software on user system through the Summit AI?
Yes, you can.
Thank you, Syed. Mukesh, our representative, will reach you out for more information on this.
So the answer is yes, but we can have more discussions regarding that if required. Tanushree, any more questions from the chat?
I don't see any questions.
I think I just saw one. I think there was a question saying that can we have, I mean, is there a mobile app for this? I think yes. So Summit AI has a native mobile app. As we're progressing, we have certain asset management features today available, not completely, but as part of our roadmap, we are introducing more asset related features within our mobile app. So partially yes, but it's also still part of our roadmap. So we have that from. I think Sachin is asking, is this an on-premises software or cloud-based? We have both. We are on-prem as well as cloud-based. So we hosted in Microsoft Azure, if you're interested. So that is something which we have. But if you all have your own cloud services, we are ready to host it on your cloud also. For us, that becomes on-premises, as well as any of your data center, physical data center, even that we are capable. I think someone had asked for our contact information, so I'm just letting you know it's on your screen. So let me minimize this. I apologize. So you can see, you can write to us, or write to Ambali, who is also one of our colleagues. So this is our website and there's a phone number, so you can always get in touch with us. Tanushri, I think this question is going to be more for you. Can you share the recorded session is the question. So
Sure, definitely. We will be sharing the recorded session with all the participants. Post this session, you all will receive the recorded session to your registered email ID.
I think prior to that, there was one more question that was requested by Mr. Santosh. How do we have asset tagging or barcode? Yes, we do have.
We do have.
Where you can do a physical reconciliation using QR codes. So our mobile app support that, where you can do a physical reconciliation.
Yes. Any other questions?
Okay. If you have any questions, feel free to write us on summit.sales@symphonysummit.com. And thank you, Jai, for the insightful session.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody.
As we are, thank you. The remaining, please don't hesitate to reach us on the summit.sales@symphonysummit.com. I would like to thank each one of you for attending this webinar by taking your time out. We will be sharing the recorded of this session via email with all of you. We wish you all a great day ahead. Stay safe and take care of yourself. Thank you once again.